Okay, so I thought I'd show you a free tool you can use to validate your SSL TLS configuration once you've set it up on your endpoint. This has been put together by Qualsys SSL Labs, and it's effectively a report that will give you a score and some guidance where you need to look to improve the security posture of your TLS. It's been put together by a chap called Ivan Rustic, and he's also got a book out there called Bulletproof SSL and TLS, which is a fantastic deep dive into what's going on under the covers, really, with SSL handshakes and so on. So we're just going to drop into test your server, and let's try something that's pretty well known, ebay.com. So this option below it, that will just remove it from these boards that are here, which it will just cache these entries for a period of time. So we'll submit that. It takes a little bit of time to process, so what I'll do is I'll pause the video and then carry on in a bit. Okay, fantastic. That's just ran. That took a few minutes. But what you're looking at here is a report for ebay.com. So it gives us a basic score ranking that's here. You can determine more about how that score is calculated. There is a GitHub repo, and it's over at the SSL Labs research side, the SSL server rating guide. This will go through the details of how they score this, but I'm just going to point that out and flick back and show you a bit more about what's on this report. So as you can see, we've got an A+, pretty good for eBay. We would expect that. Use this as a way to guide you towards better SSL in case there's any misconfiguration going on. So what we see here is the first certificate. So if, just as an example, on our certificate path chain that we have here, this would be the one that's actually implemented on the site, intermediaries, and back to root. So we'll see that chain listed here. In our case for eBay, it covers quite a few domain names. Some other details about it, the certificate authorities that have been used as well. Under this configuration section, we see the protocols which are applied on the endpoint. So what we can use as a client when connecting, they're not currently supporting 1.3. If we were to do this against, say, the Google domain, they're a bit more cutting edge, and they'll be using the latest, greatest, and it's supported in the newest versions of Android as well. But in a nutshell, the newer protocols are a lot more bulletproof than the older ones, which have more known vulnerabilities, I suppose. So it's a balance between security and usability. So if you go too high on the protocols, then what you're going to find is particular clients won't be able to connect to your endpoint. So what we're looking for here is green, amber, and red. So that's just a quick visual cue to identify which areas need your attention. So you can work through this. You can disable certain ciphers you deem an unacceptable risk. So as we come further down here, the handshake simulation, this is a variety of different clients which are connecting, and the minimum protocol version that they can use, or the highest in fact, which would be the most secure. So as you can see, there's a lot of user agents listed there. If we go down to the protocol details itself, these are a list of known sort of exploits and vulnerabilities that are out there in the wild. So various different forms of attack and fingerprinting and all that sort of pen testing side of things that would happen. So if you see any reds in this area, they should get your attention pretty quick. So as we scroll on down, that's pretty much it. That's our report for this at the moment. So if you want more information related to this, what you can do, there's a documentation page there. I did already point earlier to SSL Labs, their research side, but there is also a best practice guide that's out there as well, which is pretty good. It just tells you follow these things when you generate your certificates, and just make sure that you're using Open SSL in the right way, and that should give you a pretty good score. So aim for the A+, but bearing in mind it's all about usability, so you need to use what's sensible for your users that are there, and that's it really. That's all there is to SSL Labs. So a great tool, and I recommend you use it. This is a service called Let's Encrypt. What these guys do is they issue certificates for your production web servers, if you want it to be, and yeah, they're just free certificates basically. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the service offered by these guys as the certificate authority, the intermediary, and then we're also going to use a tool called CertBot, which is it's basically a Python tool that integrates with the Linux environment, and it allows you to automatically configure and interact with Let's Encrypt to have your certificate issued. So it's what they call here an Acme client. It's an instance of that. So here's CertBot itself. We'll be looking at this closer soon. Here we have a tool called CertBot. It's been put together by the Electronic Frontier Foundation. These guys are hot on privacy. So what this will do is it will integrate with Let's Encrypt, and it will provide like a little runner agent where it will automatically renew your HTTPS certificates for free. So this is a brilliant option for Linux, and we'll be using this along with Nginx. What's quite good as well is we get some pre-baked configuration down here as well. So we can click on that and get some instructions on what we need to do to set up our box. So we'll run through this in a second. I'll just set up a box where we can install this and then put that into an Nginx instance. So here I've just configured a virtual machine, a very small instance, just to be spun up temporarily, so we can exercise CertBot on an Nginx web server. So this will be a CentOS 7.5 image from the marketplace. So just basic password access, and we can access it publicly over SSH and HTTPS or HTTP. So it's not going to be around for long. We're going to tear it down quite quickly after this demo. But you wouldn't want something like this left open on the internet. So I'm just going to go through, spin that up. It takes a little bit of time. So I'll pause the video and then we'll come back once it's complete. Okay, that's great. The deployment's complete. So now we're just going to jump in over onto the box. There's our public IP address. It's now been listed. And we're going to get the connection string that we can use for SSH. So here we are. We'll use that in a second. Okay, so let's connect into our new VM. Just copy the password over from earlier. There we have it. So now we're all connected. I had to run a few commands earlier. This is the second time, thanks to video editing. I'll just show you some of the commands that were ran. So just a basic sudo update. That's just to make sure the packages are up to date. There's nothing to do because I did it earlier, but it did take some time when I did it originally. Also, for the Nginx installation, I added an Nginx repo in Vi, so you can see the details here that were added, so that's good. That was then saved, and then I proceeded to complete a yum installation of Nginx. So again, nothing to do because I've already installed it, but that's what you would have done. And finally add it as a startup task for Nginx, which is great, and then check the status of Nginx as well. So that's telling me that it's running at present. So if you have a firewall, then you need to consider that as well. For this particular image that I've got, there's no firewall. It's not very secure at all. Just one last test. Just hit it on the public IP using curl. And there we have it. We've got an Nginx server running on the local machine, being hit via the public IP address. So that's a very, well, I've cheated here because I've already done the installation, but if you were to go through this, it would probably take about 10 minutes to install the various dependencies. But you've got the configuration there. So now we have Nginx all set up, ready to go. So now it's a case of focusing back on certbot. Our next step is to install certbot. So I've already done it on this VM just to test it, so I'm just going to show you the bits that I did. But first we add in the extended repos that would be needed. Next is the installation of yum utils. I've basically taken all of this from the certbot website I showed you earlier with the EFF. Here we go. Another installation for yum config management, and finally the certbot tool itself, which is here. Okay, now the actual certbot command that we want to run is this. However, after a fresh install, if you did that, it's not going to work, and the reason being is because you need to go into the Nginx configuration file, which is over here in CentOS. And within there, I would suggest that you buy it. At the very top here, you can see I've already added the correct server name that will be used for our certificate when it's issued. What you have to do is replace server name localhost, which it will be by default, to be the DNS entry that's going to be used. What I've done over on Azure is I've adjusted, I'll just bring that window into view, but for the public IP I've set up a DNS prefix here, so that's now linked, so our server binding will work with that. So once you've done that, what you're seeing in this configuration is the result of certbot having ran already. So I'll just quit out of there and I'll run the certbot command that we'll need for our particular domain. So because I've already ran this, it's going to ask me, do I want to renew or reinstall? So let's just run through that. I'll tell it to do a reinstall of the existing certificate, and I'll say there will be a redirect to force all requests to use HTTPS. And that's it. That's what certbot does for you. It does it very well. It's thanks to this Python tool, really. It allows you to also add a cron job where it will be automatically renewing. It makes it very easy to renew things. So now our next step is to just give that a really quick basic test. So I'll just bring my browser into view. Okay, and there we have it. So I'll refresh that page. We can see we're hitting our domain and our certificate, which has been issued. So there it is. It's been issued by Let's Encrypt and the root authority, and there we have it. So next, what we can do is go over to, as the suggestion is made here on the certbot page, is to go over to the SSL labs and take a closer look at it, so we can then do an analysis on that domain. What is worth pointing out is we did set up redirection from HTTP to HTTPS, so that's a permanent redirect. So we have a secure endpoint there. We can add our domain into here and do a quick analysis on it using Qualsys. It takes a little bit of time to get through this. Here you go, it's just running its tests. And there we have it. Out of the box, an A rating. I went into a bit more detail earlier on what the score is. That's interesting. Yeah, that could be looked at. That's the DNS entry that needs to be added, just to say who issued the certificate. Hopefully that was useful. That's a sort of end-to-end how to use certbot with Nginx to get things up and running quite quick. Yeah, thanks for watching.